You could also blame Nyx, because that's what we do.
Yeah, go for it. Blame me. I'm the one who consistently screws up the audio in just about everything.
Although we could also point fingers at Jack, because he's been strangely quiet this whole time. Maybe he's trying to sabotage us.
Yes, hello, Jack.
You found my plan out.
Hashtag blame Nyx.
We have it all figured out. You can't hide. We know the truth.
All right. So I guess that we should call it ready to go then.
Yeah.
Well, we got plenty of friends here now. Chat is flying by too fast to fully read and respond to everything. So I know that we're actually... Oh, and we have memes in the chat. So now I know we're ready to go.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, they're trending a hashtag right now.
I know.
Hashtag blame everyone, blame
United
Nyx.
States. It is not nearly night, but it's always night somewhere in the case of our special friend BaptismOnFire, aka Jack, joining us here this evening. It is nighttime, so I would call it a Moonlight Chat either way. Just depends what part of the globe you're on. So, welcome to the Moonlight Chat. This is the very first live podcast for this aspect of the channel. It's our maiden voyage, so maybe there will be some hiccups, maybe not, but I'd like to present our friends here. You, of course, know who I am. Many of you, through association and pure reputation, know who this guy, Nyx Fears, is over here. Nyx Fears, also known as Mason. If others don't know what you do, go ahead and introduce yourself and say a little bit about what you do.
Hello, everyone. Y'all know me, and if you don't know me, I'm resident friend of Nightmind. That's my channel. I'm friend of Nightmind. No, that's a joke, but well, not really though. Anyway, I do videos on YouTube about movies, and I'm a filmmaker, so I talk about that a lot. Horror aficionado, whatnot.
All right,
Anyway, moving on.
And Kevin Smith, and well, mostly lately things that get you in trouble.
Yeah, lately Kevin Smith. Really angry at him. Anyway.
Yeah. So that's what Nyx does. Definitely check out his channel. As soon as I have this recording up and all dressed up for public human consumption afterward, I'll go ahead and have links to everybody in the chat. In the video description.
You're going to give links to everybody in the chat? That's terrible.
You get a link, and you get a link, and you get a link.
We got links to these guys.
Oh, no.
Oh, snap.
Okay, next up we have our friend Midnight Marinara, also known as Dave here. Dave, if you could present yourself and a little bit about what you do.
All right, I see you, Slime Beast. I see your hashtags. You go fall in a hole. That's what I do. I yell at Slime Beast. No, hi. I'm David King. I am the host and creator of Midnight Marinara, as well as the Undercooked Analysis podcast. We're known for doing audio dramas and radio plays of various terrifying, creepy, and maybe sometimes humorous stories that float around the internet. Not always creepypasta, but creepypasta is kind of how we got our start. And Undercooked Analysis is a show which Nick has been a frequent guest of, and actually Nick has also been in a couple of Midnight Marinara episodes as well. So there's that to look out for. But Undercooked Analysis is no script, no plan, no filters. We read creepypasta cold, and then at the end sort of put it all to scrutiny, or in the middle put it all to scrutiny. Either way, it's all a just huge confusing muddle and usually a ton of fun.
Absolutely it is. And yeah, it's been a pleasure being on Midnight Marinara and joining in for some Undercooked Analysis discussions. And
well, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you.
Absolutely. And of course, we have our new friend here, BaptismOnFire, otherwise known as Jack. If you could step up and introduce yourself to our lovely listeners here and what you do.
Hi, I make videos on YouTube, obviously. Often, sometimes about the paranormal and explaining that, and very often comedy short videos making fun of the more fan fiction sides of internet horror.
And although a lot of our listeners are familiar with the material that I make and Nyx makes and David makes, I think a lot of them are going to be introduced now to your stuff. And what I wanted to say is that going through your stuff, I absolutely love what you're doing with the characters. and just the overall presentation. Like some of the things that have been the greatest surprise to me are just the amazing tricks that you managed to pull out for these videos, like the newscasts that
Oh,
seem
yeah.
legitimate. You pulled Rena-chan for a few lines once, or several times actually. I think I recognized her more than once, and just the production value is off the charts. And each and every installment of, say, Ask Jeff and Jack, I have had something to laugh out loud about. I absolutely love it.
Oh, you've worked with or you've had Rena Chan on your stuff, Jack?
No, it was just a vocal sample used, but there's quite a few voice actors that I've worked with or sort of commissioned for stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've actually I'm so blanking on the name right now. The gentleman who has a pineapple in his moniker somewhere.
Oh, yeah, Pineapple Trees Meteor.
Yeah, that guy's voice is really impressive.
Yeah, he's a great narrator.
I was genuinely impressed. I really dug his Slenderman when you're in one of your more recent videos.
Yeah.
I also got to hand it to you. I appreciate the quality you put into your stuff. I also like how self-aware most of it is. And for someone who can be critical sometimes of some of the more iconic characters of Creepypasta, I think what you do with it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think with a lot of these iconic characters, they are, lacking in a lot of departments. So it's good to have good fun with them, as they're very well-known icons of internet horror, but at the same time stem from some not so well-written roots. So it's good to have fun with them.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Well, one of the most amazing things is being able to do this like right on the heels after introducing a lot of my viewers to Stan Frederick and what it does to kind of parody and lampoon web series and what we know of that, and then being able to watch your videos and see that you're doing exactly that with the same level of not only being able to parody it and have fun with it and make fun of it, but also show some kind of love and respect to it while paying tribute in this really intelligent way to the creepypasta scene. It's fantastic. It's actually almost like uncanny how it went back to back like that. But just going through it and having Jeff and Jack in the most lovable characterization that I've ever seen of them, and Tiki Toby, of course, just you've blown me away with the presentation that you've managed to pull for these videos and some of the makeup effects, man. Oh my God, the makeup effects that you have learned. How did you even get into that?
I think I've always been a huge fan of sort of costuming from, Halloween costumes as a kid, and it's sort of really, I guess, snowballed from there. And makeup is really good for especially prosthetic makeup for sort of horror movies, and I've always loved practical effects, so that goes hand in hand with that.
How long does it typically take you to get into costume as Jeff?
Typically, it can vary as it depends. I'm still not very good at putting in Solera contact lenses, which are the sort of full eye lenses instead of just the small ones. But for the actual makeup, that usually takes sometimes just around an hour.
I can definitely see that because there's probably a lot of I figure there was a lot involved with applying just everything that goes into that and making sure the makeup is perfect. And one of the things I noticed is that whenever Jeff is talking, it does seem as if you really have extended the length of his mouth, like the width of his mouth, as if it really has been slashed. It's the coolest thing to see that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of layers of latex that have to go into stuff like that. So at the end of the day, I love to just pull it all off and take a really long shower.
Absolutely. Oh no, but it's just a whole bundle of fun. If you guys haven't seen the Ask Jeff and Jack series on Baptism on Fire, do yourselves a favor and watch it because you're just gonna have so much fun with it. There's a lot to laugh at. There's a lot to recognize, and one of the best things is that it feels like something that's been missing. As big as Creepypasta is, and as big as these characters and icons have been, nobody's really done what you've done. And it's finally fantastic to have that here, where somebody is fully knowledgeable about what they're talking about with these characters and fully aware of their full internet presence. And, not only paying tribute to it, but making a little bit of fun where it needs to be made fun. One of the best things is your recent video about the dating simulators on DeviantArt and crawling through that entire mess. And I was just sitting there watching it like, yup, this is DeviantArt. This is absolutely DeviantArt. I expected nothing less of this. And still, I'm amazed that people go through this length of making these things. Oh, there's just so much on there.
I'm awkward. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is a lot going on. I'm now seeing a whole bunch of emoticons flowing through the chat.
I'm to blame for that.
Uh,
When do you start?
I started the emoticon fight.
Oh no. I was gonna say Nyx actually had a good point in the comments. He said if anybody has any questions, I don't know about. But I'm gonna keep an eye on my Twitter feed. So if anyone wants to tweet a question at me, I will keep an eye on it on my Twitter as well.
Yeah, it's honestly the best way to get a hold of us because like the chat is going by.
It's going by pretty fast. I'm keeping an eye on it, but a lot of it is just silly. Slimy says, tweet them questions about Laughing Jack, please, everyone.
Oh God.
Ask them about Laughing Jack, what he likes to eat.
Also, shout out to Rainbot who's here.
Oh yeah,
Oh, Rainbot. Hey,
Yeah.
what's
That's cool. We haven't spoken much, but we have spoken a bit, and she's super cool. And if you guys don't know about her or aren't subscribed to her, you probably should be. I need to start getting on the collaboration bandwagon and trying to hit these people up and hang out with them because they're super cool. Why are we coughing? Hello?
No, excuse me. I'm okay. It's fine. Nothing's wrong there. You know, that's a great idea. Trust me, as someone who has a show that is, you know, constantly on the lookout for writers and voice actors, you know, that's a great sentiment.
Writer and voice
Collaboration is super important.
Both of those.
Really? Well, what do you know?
Yeah.
Meet me in the alley after the chat. Well,
With a fiver.
Bring the goods. I'll leave the key under the atme.
Oh. Nightmind, the Kevin Bacon of horror. Speaking of Nightmind,
yeah,
hello, Nightmind.
Hello. Speaking of Kevin Bacon,
Oh yeah,
it's something that I did want to bring up.
yeah.
This weekend, I was thinking about seeing something that would have required a review, but having seen the trailers, I thought, hey, you know what? This really isn't worth my viewers' time. However, you bit the bullet and went and saw The Darkness, right?
I sure did.
Tell us about The Darkness, Mason. How right was I to avoid that movie?
Let me tell you something. It had autism. It had fires, snakes. It had Kevin Bacon. It had bulimia. It had all of these amazing things, and boy, was it an amalgamation of just a wonderful cinematic experience. Kevin Bacon is actually great. He didn't try at all.
Oh,
It was amazing, actually. Like, he would deliver lines like he just woke up. Like, every line he delivered was like somebody just woke him up. It was amazing. Like, there's this one part where the neighbor's dog is barking a lot because cliche, and he walks out there and he's like talking to the neighbor. The neighbor's name is Jeff, and the neighbor guy is like, "Did you get a new cat or something? The dog's been barking a lot." And Kevin Bacon's just like, "No, Jeff, I don't have a new cat or a new gerbil or a new bird. I don't have any pets." And then the scene ends.
That sounds like a government census, like a government questionnaire. It's like, do you own a car? How much money do you make? Do you have any pets?
do you have any paranormal entities in your house? I hear that's a thing now. The dog's been barking a lot. But the
Anyway,
trailer,
it's
actually, now that you
terrible.
say that it seems like he was just woken up before every line, the trailer did kind of make me think that. Now that I think about that was kind of his presentation. Like, Kevin Bacon wanders on set, and he's like, okay, what are we doing here?
What's this? But it's pretty great. The whole, like, the villain of the movie is handprints. They just show up places, like these black handprints, and you're just like, oh no, handprints.
I didn't know someone made the hands into a movie. That's crazy.
That is essentially what it is. Yeah, man, it's real bad. I'm debating whether or not I'm gonna make a video, but if I do, it's just gonna be one big shit post. So I
What
don't
do you
know.
guys think in the chat? Should we get it? Should we get a Mason rant?
Yeah.
That seems pretty good. Actually, I just noticed the artistry wants to know, Nyx, if you went to film school.
I did, actually. I am finishing film school.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I've been in film school for quite a while. But yeah, yes, I did.
Awesome. Congrats on almost being done.
I can't wait.
Plot twist, the dark... Adequate, I gotta point this one out. Plot twist, the darkness is just about a ghost who has trouble standing up, and that's why there's handprints everywhere.
Oh. And they just fell out of the chimney too, which is why it gets dust all over the place.
The ghost of handstand Santa Claus.
Oh, okay, I do like that one.
Is it every Nyx's video is a shitpost?
Santa Claus.
True.
Oh, that reminds me. I had an odd experience the other day on Twitter. Somebody, I don't even remember how I found their tweet, because it wasn't directed at me, but somebody tweeted something about how plot reversal, Santa Claus goes to hell to give unbaptized babies gifts. And I retweeted that and sent it to Mike Doherty, who of course made Krampus, saying, "Get Mike Doherty on the case. It's Krampus in reverse." Mike Doherty sends me a reply back saying unbaptized babies actually go to limbo. Posts a Wikipedia link to the article citing that, and that was it. I just stared at it for a minute, like I don't understand how I should take this. Should I feel insulted? Should I feel honored? Is he just replying to the other person through me? Why does he feel the need to clarify this?
That's amazing.
Well, it's good to know that limbo, when you limbo, you're dealing with unbaptized baby spirits, apparently.
Unbaptized
every time
babies go to Hawaii. That's where they go now. Oh boy. But in the news, something that pertains to all of us, and we were talking a little bit about this before, but there are a lot of, and I mean a lot, of campaigns to go ahead and make creepypasta characters into major mainstream media icons through movies, some through television. And one in particular that we started talking about was Mr. Jeff the Killer, who we all decided that Jack would make an altogether better Jeff the Killer movie than whatever is in the works here.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We were taking a look at this trailer and, oh my God.
It looks real good.
If you avoid doing any origin story stuff, it might work, because the one origin story that's floating around about Jeff this Killer is not the best. I'm going to be a lot more generous than usual. It's not the best, in my opinion.
And there's so many clones of that exact story as well, with these sort of characters with the blank name and then the killer at the end, the identical sort of, bullied origin story.
Oh goodness!
It didn't really work in Rob Zombie's Halloween. I get that element of the sympathizing for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of get there's certain demographics that really love the Jeff the Killer story for a lot of reasons. I am not that demographic, and so therefore maybe I'm just kind of sitting there going, what? But I mean, I can kind of understand the popularity justifying wanting to make Jeff into a movie. I just kind of go, well, would it be a movie that I would enjoy? Dorkaberry says in all caps, 12-year-olds. And I'm like, yeah.
Notice for accuracy.
The way I see it, it's like when you have a character like that's like this he's a pretty big thing. It is kind of like looking at like a horror icon. It's like you kind of have to create some sort of inbound story with something kind of unrelated to him. Like, I don't know if I would go the origin story route. I would go a different story and have him play a part of a larger story because of his iconography. Like, he's so iconic at this point on the internet that all you need to do is get his character right while he's on screen and then tell a completely different story around him, so that when he shows up, it's not like, you know, as long as he's right, then it feels good. But if you try to do anything like reconfigure the character around, like try to figure him out, I think it might not work out so well.
No.
Yeah, Jack, you've spent so much time with Jeff the Killer as more of a comedic character, but you've still spent that time really understanding so much about him and his background that I can't help but to imagine. What do you think that as hard as it would be to make, good Jeff the Killer movie be?
Well, I think the main reason the story ever got popular was because of the image attached to it. It is, scary when you see it flash up on your screen the first time. But really, the biggest problem, well, one of the biggest problems about this movie is they haven't got the image right, first of all. So if you don't have that scary image, then you don't really have anything, because that's all Jeff the Killer really had, and it wasn't even that great anyway. So there's a YouTuber who does audio dramas called Mr. Betty Kruger, or Patrick Ferguson, who's a voice actor, who also does a really great voice for these Creepypasta characters. And he's made a good few audio dramas about the character and really changed it to a stylistic slasher story, which is very different to the original stories out there.
I'll have to check that out.
Check out then, yeah.
Yeah.
If he's actually done something good with it, that's impressive. Like one of the things I think about with any character like this, or any character that you hear about them and you instantly say, "Oh, that sounds fantastic," is that it's all about the execution. It's all about in the way that you actually treat the character. For instance, Captain America. I never thought that a character called Captain America could ever be presented in a likable way, and yet Marvel did it. Something like Jeff the Killer is you just got to get a good writer or a good director on board with this idea and find the best way to treat it. It's just that because it is Jeff the Killer, good luck getting anybody attached to that who wants to spend the time with it.
I was going to chime in actually saying that I've also done an audio drama, shameless self-plug, of Jeff the Killer, but mine delved into more of the realm of parody, where the reason Jeff went insane was because he realized he was in a hackneyed story where cliches happened, and the only other person who understood that was Lou. And so at the end, he's finally driven to the point where he has to assume the role of the main character of this revenge fantasy, and it doesn't go well. It doesn't go well for Jeff. So.
Well, I do like that angle. I mean, it is the meta angle, but it works very well for it, and it works as a good commentary.
It was fun to do because, like, my problem is not necessarily with Jeff himself. It was more with, if anything, in the angle, Jeff is a sympathetic character, but for a completely ridiculous reason, in that he recognizes how ludicrous the setting is, and he's always talking about how he feels the cliche creeping in on his mind. Can't do anything about it. And then he and Lou have like really weirdly like fourth wall breaking, self-aware conversations. Like, isn't it just weird how we live in this like neighborhood, and also the bullies get away with everything scot-free while we get in trouble? It's like something steering us on a path toward evil or something. Isn't that weird? Yeah, that is weird. And then, of course, by the end of it, Jeff's like, "No, Lou, you don't understand. I had to assume the mantle. It's what's meant for me."
The 14-year-old writing the story commands it.
Yeah, that's basically the idea. So that's one way to handle it. I just I don't know.
Yeah, it reminds me actually of String Theory, which I listened to the other day. String Theory is really good.
Thank you. I had fun with that one. It was a real challenge though. Very, very visual story, String Theory.
But you did manage to pull it off. It does create the visuals needed.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that.
But other than Jeff the Killer, the character that absolutely refuses to die, Slenderman, is trying to get into another movie after several attempts that we were looking at Kickstarter projects for this. And now if you look for Slenderman under Kickstarter, the amount of results you're going to get are just
mind-bogglingly many.
There's so many.
Yeah.
Because he's not an owned property, everybody's like, I'll make a Slenderman movie, why not? It doesn't belong to anybody, so they're just like, yeah, sure, I can write that. I guess.
I mean, the guy who actually created Slenderman on the Something Awful forums did actually sign an agreement to the director or producer, whoever's making the new movie. So there was actually, so there was something involved which wasn't in any of the other sort of fan movies. I think this one's getting a much bigger release.
Well, if it's got that endorsement, that's slightly better news.
That is better news. That means that we can actually, I suppose, take that as official. We could maybe consider that canon. It's really hard with something like Slenderman because it really is. Somebody fathered this thing, but the internet was its mother, and
Right.
just raised it entirely. It's going to be interesting seeing how this turns out. I'm kind of wondering what kind of release it's going to get. If it's going to be a limited release, if it's going to be online, if it's
gonna be
going to be in
online.
theaters.
I think they'd be making a major marketing mistake by putting it in theaters at this point because of how well bred it is online. It would make so much more money and get seen by so many more people if it was online.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
kind of how I feel about it.
They've got such a quality bar to jump over with always watching.
Yeah.
Apparently,
You know
it's Sony who's making the film.
Sony? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
what?
Apparently,
Sony's making it?
Sony's working on the film, so
Is it really? Okay.
yeah, it's part of
Well-
Sony Pictures apparently.
I don't know.
Jeez.
Sony doesn't have a good track record right now.
No,
Sony's
not
been
really.
Goofing everything.
You know what's weird is I actually know a guy who did film editing on Always Watching.
Did he know how it was going to turn out as he was working on it?
I don't think he did. But he did tell me once, oh yeah, I was in that one that Always Watching, the Marble Hornets story. I'm like, really? And this is before you and I met, Nick. So this is a while ago. I'm like, okay, cool. I never did get around to watching it. And then I heard your reaction to it and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Someone in the chat, Bob Bellotti, says, "Remember that time that there was a movie about B on 4chan?" I do remember. I don't even need to watch it because I already know everything about it. The Smiley Killer.
Dear
Mhm.
God.
Apparently.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, that's right.
Somebody. Apparently, these two girls in the story allegedly, they go on B of all places, and they find out about this party on B, and they go to the party. Why would you ever? Why would you ever
Why would you
go to a party
on B?
advertised on B?
Why would you ever go to a party advertised on 4chan in general?
Have you
Good
seen
point.
Sounds like a terrible idea. I probably wouldn't go to one on Reddit either.
I haven't seen it. No, just because I need to sit down and watch that just for a bad
ending
movie
that-
night.
The ending is something else. Like,
Oh goodness.
yeah, you don't want to know who's behind the killings.
Reddit.
Anonymous.
Anonymous.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
It's anonymous?
Of course.
Yeah.
No.
Oh no.
Oh no! You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Of course. It's probably written by somebody who went on B one time and they were like, "Oh God, this is
But it's-
not." And
it's
then
written
they
and
just went home
directed.
and wrote.
It's written and directed by a good few well-known YouTubers, so it's strange that these people
really?
who made their career online know nothing about how the internet works really, and how these sort of internet
That's
memes
hilarious.
don't age well. So
No, not at all.
they're like shouting "pedo bear" and "I did it for the lols," and it's
Here comes that
Pedo
boy.
Bear, that takes me
Yeah.
back.
You know what? If that movie had like an assistant killer to Smiley that was a guy in a pedo bear costume, that I think that would actually make the movie. That would sell it for me. I'd watch it
In like a
just to see
data
that somebody
farming
did
way.
Hell, it could just be Mr. Bear from 1999.
Just make the killer Joey Salads.
There you go.
Hey guys, Joey Salads here with another social experiment.
jump
Anyway,
scared by Ethan Bradbury.
yeah, Ethan Bradbury.
that. Oh my god! I keep hearing that name everywhere, and I've never seen his stuff. What's the deal about this Ethan Bradbury guy?
He does quote unquote prank videos, and they're pretty funny. He's kind of terrible. Well, they're all terrible, but he's really terrible.
He does those sort of fake social experiment videos where he pretends to kidnap people or, set houses on fire or whatever.
Oh goodness.
Gone sexual, must watch.
Surely somebody's
Someone-
gonna make a prank video movie, like a feature.
Ooh.
It's like somebody does a prank video and it goes sexual.
Oh
Like,
gosh.
It goes real wrong, like it goes real bad, and then they get
Ooh.
like fucking murdered.
Now,
Please.
there are several movies out like that without that ending, and they're all on RedTube.
Dude, Mason, you got to
Oh,
make
right.
that, man. That's
Yeah,
that's
let me write
golden.
that
You got to
one
make that.
Prank videos gone sexual. Yeah, I'll get right on that.
The tagline could be someone desperately just going, "It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank."
As they're being buried alive.
Yeah. There you go. Someone
Buried
in
up to their
the
head like Keanu Reeves.
Yes.
Someone
Oh
in-
my God.
someone in the comments, I think it was Dark Truth, said 1999 would make a good movie, and I want to go, yeah, sure, if they didn't rip off goddamn Alan Resnick.
Yeah. Well,
I
that's
love
the
Alan
thing, that
Resnick so
1999 had so much steam and so much power going for it that it easily could have been adapted to something if at the end they didn't, completely disrespect Alan Resnick.
Yeah, that's the thing. And the funny thing is, I found out just recently there's a notification on the original on Creepypasta Wiki now that says, like, admins note this. Many people have pointed out that this story bears some parts of this story bear a resemblance to Alan's tutorial, and that the author should cite sources or change it if before anything else happens with this story. I'm just sitting there going, yes.
Finally. Okay.
I really
talking about it.
I really genuinely hope that we might have had a small part in getting that set up. For those who are curious and maybe haven't heard, the first time we had Nick on Undercooked Analysis, it was to discuss the Alan tutorial connection to 1999 that me and my co-host Dead Palette discovered.
Yeah, and that was a fun time because I had no idea that 1999 was headed that way. At the time, I had read a few entries up. I was like in the middle of the story, and for you guys to come and say, hey, you know that Alan tutorial thing you covered? Well, there's this thing called 1999, and the ending, oh my God. And then I took a look, and oh, man.
Yeah, this broke my heart. Because I was feeling good about that story, and then this happened. I'm like, no. And then chat wants their memes, right? It's almost like the author was looking at, was going around trying to figure out how to keep expanding the story. They look over at Alan tutorial and they go, an Alan tutorial video, I'll steal it. No one will ever know.
Yeah, that basically must have been the track of thinking. But no, we know. We found out.
Tiki Tobuscus says, sorry, that just really amused me.
Tiki Tobuscus.
Tiki Tobuscus.
Well, I finally got around to watching This House Has People in It.
Yeah.
Took me forever, but I finally watched it. And then I also watched Alan's video. It's another Adult Swim one where he was like, God damn it.
Live forever as you are now?
Yes. There's a weird part in that video where he says my name. Have you seen that recently?
I have not watched it recently, but I know I know the beat.
I was watching it at like 4 a.m. with the lady. We're sitting here watching it, and we are tripped out by just the way that it's done, like, because Alan Resnick is the master at subtle weird. And so we're like watching it, and we're kind of weirded out. And then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, you too, Mason, or whatever. And we both like unanimously looked at each other like, oh shit. And we had to pause the video for a little while and reconvene our psyche.
Collect
That was really weird.
Yeah, have you seen any of Alan Resnick's stuff or any of the Adult Swim infomercials recently?
Yeah, I've seen quite a few of them, actually. I think the unedited footage of a bear has to be my favorite.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had a whole lot of fun covering that, just because of the sheer depth of it. I had no idea how big This House Has People in It was going to be afterwards in terms of sheer depth. It's like they took the concept of unedited footage and opened it threefold. It was amazing.
Chat's wondering what the weird, creepy vacuuming noise in the background was. I have to apologize. That's from my end, but I also can't apologize because it's not from anywhere in my place. Someone outside is running some sort of machine, and it periodically. I have no idea what's going on.
They also want to know how big our penises are.
Well, time to end the chat.
Yeah, okay. Good night, everybody.
Hey, look, 300 people are watching this right now.
Whoa.
Oh, boy. Idea.
God, this
Like
bunch.
The Office or Parks and Rec, plot twist, it's the SCP Foundation.
Go back to Tumblr with your Doverboy memes. I'm like, no, never. Doverboy memes is great. I love
Man,
that
talks
cartoon
me on Tumblr. Why is that?
I don't know. I have no idea why it exploded. I only thing I know is that cartoon went into the public domain, and now everybody's going crazy with it.
Yep, and that's exactly why.
But
Awesome.
I remember that cartoon from when I was a kid, and I'm like, I still remember how fun that was. And now that it's a me, I'm like, this is great.
Wow.
Somebody mentioned Twin Peaks continuation, and
Oh, yeah.
Twin Peaks. Oh,
Twin
that's
Peaks. Mason,
That's right up your guys' alley.
David, he and I know a lot about Twin Peaks. Jack, I saw you reblogging some stuff for Twin Peaks the other day. Have you seen Twin Peaks?
I've seen the first two. I've seen the 2 seasons. I haven't seen the movie.
You have seen the 2 seasons. Okay, you do not need to see the film.
Okay.
Well, sort of. If you saw the film, you'd only be more confused. But
should
you've
see
seen
the-
both seasons, so we can talk about it then.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So, chat, we'll go ahead and let you in on this secret. Only 300 of you or so are going to know about this in advance. There's a good chance that I'm going to be uploading the actual edited and cleaned up version of Moonlight Chat for everybody to watch later on after this point. But right now, Nyx and I are working on a Twin Peaks video as the premiere of Theater 96.
Ooh.
And it's written.
Is it really?
and
Is it?
I'm
Did you
shooting
get it done?
tomorrow morning?
Nice.
And it's good.
Excellent. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
actually something we've been working on, and Twin Peaks has been something I've been like living with for about 2 months now, having gone through the series and the movie and just digging up all these interviews and everything else that I could get my hands on to try and explain it. And it's a tough one, guys. It really is a tough one. Kind of, sort of. It has these layers of being able to explain it and being able to understand it. But then there's the third layer that's 110% David Lynch. You don't know what you're doing with that one. You can only get like one cipher key, but it doesn't unlock the rest nearly as much as you'd like.
Yeah. Well, in the way that I've kind of explained it in the video, or the way that I kind of have been kind of coaxing this whole process, is like, in order to understand a David Lynch movie, you have to watch a lot of David Lynch movies, which seems kind of counterproductive. It seems kind of weird to say, but it is the truth. Like, you have to understand semiotics, like his common semiotics, and you have to understand like the way he uses dichotomies. You have to understand the common tools and what those typically mean, you know, when going into it. And Twin Peaks is very much that. The only difference between like Twin Peaks and anything else that David Lynch has ever made is Twin Peaks is so much longer. It's so much longer because it's a show, and it's these usual things that are at play, but they're at play everywhere, all over the place, so often. And it's just crazy how many of these commonalities are in there, kind of interweaved, that if you think trying to understand it is hard, I can't even imagine trying to write it. Like, it's kind of amazing how it's written. It's also really funny. If no one's seen Twin Peaks, it's really funny. There's a bit of a had to be there kind of thing, because it's kind of making fun of Dallas, like the show Dallas. But
Oh yeah.
it's such a brilliant show. It's such a brilliant show. You should absolutely watch Twin Peaks if you have not, and watch the movie too. It'll confuse the hell out of you, but it gives you the theme like directly. The great thing about the movie is it hands you the theme. After you've watched the show, go back, watch the movie, and it's like, look, there it is. Like, the whole theme of the show is. And the movie is that theme so clearly driven in. Anyway, I'm not going to say any more because the video's going to come out. But
Yeah, but good news for everybody that I was really holding out hope for, because I know that Netflix picks up and drops things all the time, but the 2 full seasons of Twin Peaks are available on Netflix if you guys have not seen it. For your
Yes.
next binge watching session, sit down with a hot coffee and a donut or two and watch Twin Peaks. Just
Time to go back and revisit it. If you've seen it before, great, revisit it. If you haven't, watch it. We got some big things coming on here in the future, so go
and
for
it gets kind of hard to keep watching, like near the middle of season 2. Like, there's some meandering that the show does, because it kind of kind of loses focus because it got thrown off by production problems, but it really gets it back in the end. Like the last episode or two are fucking amazing.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
yeah, there are reasons it completely kind of lost its way in the middle of the second season, which we do talk about in the video, but it finds its way back for sure.
yes, and that's mostly because David Lynch like left because he was pissed about it, and then he came back. and you can tell when he goes and when he comes back, like almost the exact moments. It's kind of funny, but anyway.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. Actually, and if we didn't need to sell it, as if we didn't need to sell it anymore to you guys, if anyone out there is a fan of Gravity Falls, you owe it to yourself to check out Twin Peaks, because so much of Gravity Falls is kind of aware of Twin Peaks and is a little bit of an homage and a little bit of a parody. The show creator, Alex Hirsch, modeled his Bill Cipher voice after David Lynch. It's sort of a parody of David Lynch. So there you go.
Yeah, Jack, what was your takeaway from watching Twin Peaks for the first time? Because there's so much that goes through your head as you're watching it, and especially when you leave it, especially the way it ends.
Definitely varies from episode to episode. There's it has really great characters as well as the actual story and music. There's a lot to definitely take from it. But I guess the bit that really stood out to me was, I think, episode 9, when you see Bob come over the couch. That definitely was probably my favorite scene of the whole show.
Yeah. One of the things I'll say early in anticipation of the video is that if you guys have not been scared by possession in movies or television or anything like that, Twin Peaks is the show that will make possession scary for you. Because, oh my God, do they nail it.
Well, and I think it's honestly the way that they present it. It's presented in such a nonsensical, like, it feels nonsensical, like, I can't even imagine this happening. Like, it's so, if you imagine this like happening to yourself, I don't know. It's very immersive, like in what that would be like, I guess. And there's movies like The Exorcist where it's more like watching it happen to someone and being like thrown by how horrible it is. But in Twin Peaks, it's all about what's happening, what would be happening to you, which is an amazing perspective change.
That, plus it also, you get to see the effects of it working on other people through whoever is possessed. Like one of the things about The Exorcist is that you get to watch the events of someone under the effects of possession, but it's literally a contained room situation. It only ever happens like in the house, really, and that's where it stays. And in order for the possession to act on anybody, they have to be around somebody else. But Twin Peaks, you get to see what happens when you put someone who's possessed in this environment where there are so many other people, and watch what happens to them after you've already become attached to these personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys seen the Log Lady intros to certain episodes?
Oh, yeah.
I have not.
You've not?
I have not.
Okay.
Mostly because when I watched Twin Peaks, I don't know, like the first time, and it's a pretty big show to delve into. I think it was like 2012 or something like that. And I watched them on very old DVDs. I don't think it was on Netflix yet. So, but I missed a lot of those like pretty amazing little features. I need to find those.
So I think there's a more recent box set, I think the Gold Edition. They include all the Log Lady intros and some good features as well.
Yeah, I didn't just buy it. I bought it last year, but I still haven't watched all of it. I bought the Blu-ray box set that has all of it in the movie and like a lot of deleted like scenes, behind the scenes stuff and whatnot. I need to delve into that a little bit deeper and go through it all again. There's so much.
It really is, yeah.
Everybody's talking about Zawalski's Possession, which is a fantastic film. Anyway, sorry.
No, there really has been so much, because the Log Lady intros was something that David Lynch wrote and directed with the woman who plays Margaret, Catherine Coulson, I think was her name, and that was specifically for a rerun of the series on Bravo in the mid-1990s, well after the series was done, well after the movie came out. So for him to actually go in there and do that, that was his attempt to, I suppose, kind of clear up the mystery a bit by giving you more riddles. But it works. Because when you go through it and you listen to the Log Lady entries and you listen to what she has to say and the riddles that she presents to you, it's exactly what you said, Mason. It's what the movie does. It presents what the entire thing is about. It just does it in a more riddle fashion. Sometimes
Right.
Margaret is clear, sometimes she's not so clear, but it's always there to help you with the interpretation that you're supposed to gather.
I think the important thing to take away from a lot of the stuff, I mean, Log Lady, and Twin Peaks in general, is just that like sometimes it's you don't, what's going to drive you crazy is the fact that there are no answers, and that's part of what keeps you going. And I've always ascribed to the idea that the less you know about something, the more unsettling and scary it could potentially be. So I think that's part of the major success there. So when you're so desperate, so reaching to try and find something, I almost find the more cryptic stuff to be the most entertaining, because you're like, what the heck does that mean? And then you kind of go, maybe just let it go. Maybe just understand that maybe you'll never be able to understand it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
and I think the biggest thing that's in every single David Lynch thing ever is, how do you understand it? How does it feel to you? Because there is no right answer. And that's why David Lynch is so against giving his interpretation, because that implies there's a right answer. And he's very into, this is what it means to me, and this is, it's going to mean something else to somebody else.
Right. That's the nature of art. I mean, like basically what David Lynch is doing is he's really committing to reader response theory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just like, what do you interpret it as? Whatever you interpret it as might be true. So
right. And to a level where people outright think he doesn't, like, think he's like kind of pretentious because he just does whatever, like, he thinks he's like smarter than everybody else. And that's not it. It is reader response theory. He's not giving information intentionally. He's straw manning himself to look like a crazy person, even down to the way that he talks and looks. Even that far, because I've seen him talk candidly, and I've seen him talk like himself, like the way we know of him, and they are different. He's a walking, living piece of performance art that is trying really, really hard to conceal his objectives so that people will interpret his art independent of the person.
And that's really, I always found that really commendable, and I agree with you. I find that really commendable about David Lynch and why he's such a fascinating character. I mean, really, he is a character. I mean, he's trying to be a character, like you just pointed out, and that's what's so fun and intriguing about all of it, and the work he does. So part of it is just you kind of having to go in and go like, let me just embrace this for what it is. Let me just embrace the strangeness. Ambiguity is fine. Things can be ambiguous, and you can like leave it be,
Right. But the other thing is, like, he's absolutely a master of the craft too. Like cinematic language, making things cinematic, making things feel real in like a scary, real way. Like, you emotionally connect so hard to what's happening on screen. Even like Mulholland Drive, which I think is the clearest example of a movie where you completely 100% emotionally connect with what's going on screen, even if you don't know what's happening.
Right.
And that's amazing. That's not something that anybody can do. And that's why I honestly think he's probably one of the greatest directors of all time, one of the greatest writers of all time, because he can make that happen.
One of the coolest things that I see happening right now is with the resurgence of Twin Peaks, and with the mix of that plus what we're getting out of Adult Swim with Whim City Comedy and Alan Resnick's work, I think that we're seeing kind of a resurgence of film as art, where it's not explicitly, said what the thing is, and it's not just story A to B, that there is an artistic inherent meaning, that there were little things done that had complete purpose to them, and there is a puzzle inside of there.
Right. And it's the experimental narrative is probably what it is. It's so we're in like the 90s, we were kind of getting used to this pull the rug out from under the audience thing. We present something as real and then we find out that it's fake, and that got really contrived and everybody hates it now. Like when something comes out and it's like, it was all a dream. It was all a dream. Yeah, that everybody hates that now. Everybody hates the twist. But what's great about a lot of experimental narrative stuff is the twist happens the first thing. Like they get the twist out of the way immediately, and then the whole thing past that is an experimental way of showing the before and after, or showing like, I don't know, it's different for different people. But what's great is, like, for David Lynch specifically, Mulholland Drive, the twist of that movie comes an hour and a half into the movie, and it's 2.5 hours, and they don't even tell you that it was a twist. The twist was like it happens, and you have to figure out where it happened.
It's almost it's almost to cite one of my favorite tropes when it comes to a lot of creepypasta stories, the fridge horror concept. Like, not necessarily, it's obvious that thing, but like the idea that something that you don't really grasp the concept of what happened until maybe you're not thinking about it later, and you go, oh no, and it dawns on you what the more the revelation hits you later. Like, it was put in the fridge, and then you open it and you find it, you know?
Right.
The example I always like to cite for people that's really simple is the story Ability, which I would tell, but we should be not talking about that here. Go if anyone out there in chat is curious, look up a creepypasta called Ability, and then try and wrap your head around that one. Once you figure it out, it's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
Ability, huh? See, I always love that fridge horror concept as well, because that is fun when it finally hits you later. I've had a few moments like that. It's hard to completely pin down which media does it, because it's so sporadic when it happens. But God, have I had that feeling where you've been out doing something, or you've just been hanging around, and all of a sudden it hits you and you get chills because you just, it's so quick. You didn't even realize it. Didn't Nick watch Perfect Blue? I have seen Perfect Blue. I just never said that I saw it. So that's interesting that you brought that up. Have you guys seen Perfect Blue?
Me?
Oh, yes.
I have not seen it.
I haven't.
You haven't? Okay.
But I have seen Black Swan, which is
Perfect Blue. Yeah.
It's basically Perfect Blue.
Jack, David?
I have not actually seen Black Swan, though I have seen Perfect Blue. I am a huge fan of Satoshi Kon. Paranoia Agent is one of my favorite anime of all time.
People keep telling me that I need to watch Paranoia Agent. It's on the giant list of things that I still need to get into that I haven't gotten to yet. But Perfect Blue is this anime that it's not like anime. It's completely serious, and it's a very much a psych horror story while also being an emotional drama. You get to witness the slow corruption and destruction of a person, which, you know, for everybody else that sounds awful, but for us that's every day what we enjoy.
Yeah,
but it has a twist. It has a major twist, but when it happens, it turns into such a psychological, abstract moment of horror that you almost don't grasp it right away. Whereas any other twist, you get it, and you're like, oh crap, I should have seen that coming. But with Perfect Blue, when it finally happens, you feel the complete bewilderment and confusion of the main character. And you know you should have seen this coming. It was there all along, but at the same time, you're still thrown for such a loop that you have trouble accepting it.
It's pretty crazy when it happens, and I won't say what it is. I know Nick's being good, not saying what it is. But yeah, it's satisfying, and I remember sitting there just kind of blinking, like, whoa, wait, what? Yeah. It was basically my mind. That was what the sound my brain was making. So good.
And if we, on a larger concept, we were talking about, why things like experimental narrative and like Adult Swim and things like that has picked up so much, like the web series format where they're kind of like the ARG, or why they're working like that. And I think what's kind of amazing about it, and why it's more satisfying than a lot of like movies that are coming out now, is because they're working with emotions. Like, you emotionally connect to it. The intention of the thing is to make you feel a way, and they're learning how to really hone in on that one feeling. Like, okay, I haven't seen Perfect Blue, but I've seen Black Swan, and they're very similar. it's a movie all about paranoia, just trying to make you feel like the character feels, which is paranoia. And it's so deep into that like you're completely hooked on that feeling. But that's the thing, is it makes you feel something, which is a lot more than like a lot of Hollywood films do now. It honestly isn't. It's telling a story, but the way that it's telling a story is through emotion and feeling, and less like the logic of everything, which is almost stronger in my opinion.
No. It makes sense, and it engages your curiosity. I think that's one key thing, because you look at something like particularly This House Has People in It, and you just dive down so many rabbit holes because they've engaged you, and they want you to seek the truth. They want you to solve these puzzles, and it could have just been a simple thing, but what's great is like it's that need to know and that drive that like gets you to maybe solve the puzzles, and then you get to feel like you accomplished something when you get to the bottom of it, and the artist gets to feel like, hey, we engage people. We create this really interesting piece of media that's multifaceted, that's got interactive angles, that's got like it's not, you're not just a passive watcher. You're engaging in what is happening. This is true of a lot of ARGs, but I'm citing This House Has People in It specifically because I find that a really fantastic example of how what a very short and very strange and, like you said, kind of emotionally charged thing does to like pull people into the world and into the work.
Absolutely. Like just the one thing that leads to all the other rabbit holes. The image I get, and it's funny when you start thinking about this house, if anybody has explored it to the full extent, is like somebody saying, bring you to the backyard of a home, giving you a shovel and saying, I have buried 100 different treasures in this backyard. Dig them all up and then find out what they have in common and see what that story is. And it's nuts, but it's fantastic. It really draws you into the whole experience.
Right. And it's the symbolic way of telling like a pretty straightforward story. Like This House has People in It. When I was watching it, I was thinking, okay, this is like an uncomfortable comedy kind of about the family dynamic and how like a girl is falling through the floor, and because of the dynamic of the family, they don't end up solving the problem as much as it kind of solves itself. But they don't come out and say that. Because of the way that it's structured, it's saying it in a completely new way. They present all the characters at such an extreme, and then the things that happen over the course of the story happen in such a different way than would normally be the presentation of that exact thing. It becomes something new. Even though it's a story that I can see being told in a really straightforward way and maybe being kind of funny or something like that, but for the most part, it's telling you this information in a way that we've never seen.
Oh yeah.
Which is the whole point. And if there's anything to take away from This House Has People in It, it's that you don't have to present your story in a traditional way. You can tell your story to yourself and then find a convoluted way of telling it so that it means something completely new and it feels different. The way that whole thing is structured is a way to make you feel differently than you would feel if it were being told to you in a normal way.
Mm-hmm.
You have a kind of make your own adventure circumstance with it. And now I know both of you guys have also seen This House Has People in It. Jack, you said that you've seen This House, right?
Yes.
Okay. The experience I had with that. Oh boy. we all kind of understand my experience with that thing. But it ate my entire week thinking about it. As soon as that thing was uploaded on Adult Swim and I watched it on air, it was just ready, set, go. When that first happened, I was up since about 3 p.m. that day, and then I saw it at 4 a.m., and then I was up past 3 p.m. that day. So I stayed up for more than 24 hours for that first instance, that first time span that it came out, because when it dropped, there was so much involved. And I was just looking through it and going through all the pieces and trying to understand this. And so I know, what I took away from it. I made an entire video about it. But when it comes to understanding it, I'd love to hear what each of you guys took away from it, what your experience with it was.
Well, let's start with Jack.
I
Yeah,
think,
Jack, what did you get out of This House's People in it?
I think definitely the way the story is told really gets you into it, as certainly with mystery and obscure stuff that you need to find out. You really have to have a unique way of telling the story to actually be able to be invested in it and actually want to find out different parts of it. But I didn't really know what to think at first, but going on and finding more and watching your video on it afterwards, there's definitely a lot of very different elements to it.
Yeah, there seriously are. It's such a puzzle. It's such a puzzle because you pick up meaning from everything you look at, and it's hard to kind of just come to a theme because it could be about, you know, the dissolution of a family through not paying attention to each other. It could be about observation as an idea. It could be about perception and disease and mental illness. It's got so many different things that you can take away from it that I think everybody comes away from it at the beginning as a work of art with a different interpretation.
Oh yeah.
So what theme did you guys initially get from it?
Well, I immediately noticed the family dynamic thing, and I immediately noticed the observation. Now, in cinema, there's kind of this great thing that was done. It's misused constantly by filmmakers, but it's done in a very blunt way in This House's People in it, and that is shooting things in an observational way, which is typically distance. You put a lot of distance between yourself and the character, and suddenly you don't empathize with them. So the further away you get from a character with your camera, the less empathetic the story becomes. So what like Stanley Kubrick was well known for doing was standing back from his actors so that you started to think about them as a person instead of feeling what they feel. And This House has people in it because it's shot the way that it is. There's so much like there's this observational feel. It's literally on the nose. You are observing them. It's not an implied camera thing. It is literally you're observing them. And that puts so much distance between you and the characters that you can only think about them. You cannot feel what they feel. You're feeling something completely different because of the way that they shot it. So the observational thing and the family dynamic, I think, come together in a pretty fascinating way. That was the initial thing that I got out of it.
Yeah, it's turning people into objects of study,
Exactly.
which generally seems to be a theme going all the way around from what you see initially on the air to the website, which is for surveillance, and then going into the actual game aspect of it, which is the database with all these different entries and referring to each family member as a subject.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is that disconnect. God, Nyx said so much of it better than I could, but that does have that voyeuristic aspect to it. The disconnect is there, the distance is there, and you're just looking at it from the outside, not trying to. You don't really care so much about who they are as people as much as what the heck are they doing, what the heck is going on. So there's that aspect to it too. I found that really cool.
Yeah, just taking a look at people and saying, what the hell is wrong with these folks?
I'll tell you what.
And people are talking about unedited footage of a bear, and they're saying that it's better. I don't know. I think the great thing about unedited footage of a bear is that it's a transformative piece. It's a chameleon. It's never the same thing for more than a minute. Like, it's a completely different movie every minute. That element of it is, as far as like on a technical, like on a writing level, that's what's really fascinating about that to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I know a lot of people just really like the horror stuff near the end and like what all that kind of means. But I'm just so fascinated by the fact that they go from a different tone to a different tone to a different tone, completely changing the movie. And it's a short, which is great because usually a movie changes 5 times over the course of a feature film, but unedited footage of a bear changes several times in the course of a few minutes, and it feels organic. It's not a jarring change every time it happens. And if it is a jarring change, it's intentional and you feel it in a way. But it's another situation where the presentation of it, the way they shot it, the way that it feels, gives a completely different meaning to it than had it been done in a more traditional way.
Would you say that it's a completely different animal?
Yeah, It absolutely is. All of Alan Resnick's stuff is completely a completely different animal. He has his own semiotics and dichotomies and his own things that he uses a lot in his work.
Yeah.
You can see them, but that's another situation where it's a bit more observational than it is anything else. But yeah, that's a completely different animal. Alan Tutorial is a completely different animal, and the infomercial that he did, the one
Live forever as you are now.
Exactly. That one, it has its own thing too that it presents the world in a new way. Like that one takes on a very big topic, and that one honestly might be his not his best, but his strongest as far as like what he's trying to say. Like it's such a human thing that he's trying to say.
He's saying a few more things than the surface.
Yeah.
People have asked me to do something on Live Forever As You Are Now because they don't get the secret of it. And the reason I haven't done anything on it is because I want to see somebody else come to me with the answer. Also, because when I first looked at it and I first watched it, someone in the comment section pretty much nailed it in a paragraph or two. So, have you guys all seen Live Forever? I know you have, Mason. David, have you seen it?
Yes, I have.
Okay, Jack, have you seen Live Forever As You Are Now?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's the one with Alan. It's the infomercial about him. He presents himself as a hot young tech wizard.
No.
Okay, you're gonna have to check that one out. That's it's a lot like unedited footage, but is so very different. But there is a secret story there. There is a very much implied secret. I want to know what you guys think that is. What do you think the secret behind it is?
Oh, it's that Alan Resnick loves boogie boarding.
Absolutely. No, I think it's about well, as I said, it's a very human thing. It's about death for the most part, and how and it's also kind of about religion. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but thematically, I think that it's about how we're so afraid of the concepts of death that we often ignore that it's happening. I know that's like a big thing to say, but like the fact that they're recreating themselves and they're spending all this time recreating themselves in a poor fashion. It's not even good. And like the reason that they're spending all this time and energy making themselves that isn't themselves is a testament to how people are more willing to spend their lives worrying about their death than they are their own life. But I think there is also an element of internet footprint where it's saying that like you live forever as you are right now via what you're doing online and how that in and of itself will live forever. And it's kind of about art as well. How the creation of art that you make is the biggest footprint that you can have over, living a job or something like that. So I think that is also in there. It's a lot of stuff.
It is a lot of stuff.
So much stuff.
David, what do you think?
God damn it. Nyx always goes before me, and then he like basically steals everything I want to say. No, it's cool. I'm gonna say yes.
Gonna say
and
yes.
boogie boarding.
Okay.
Actually,
in the middle of actually what?
I was gonna. Well, we've been. And I'm not trying to say this is a bad thing, but it just goes to show how good Alan is that we've been talking about him for the last age and a half. And I'm looking at chat and every so often and being like, what do you guys think?
Here got $2.
So $2.
Financial report just came in. Guess he's got $2.
I want my $2.
God, Alan Tutorial is brilliant too.
Alan Tutorial is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's.
I love my wife, says Thinking Observer. Okay, what I will say.
My wife has hair.
Can we roll the windows down?
I love my wife. Yeah. Oh.
Someone earlier in the chat pointed out that I said multifaceted instead of multifaceted.
Way to go.
Thank you for catching me on that. We all make mistakes.
I'd love to have multiple faucets.
That ideas come from faucets, actually,
Yeah.
in our brains.
But now, what I will tell anybody who is going to investigate Live Forever As You Are Now, when it comes to The Secret, pay attention to that aspect that was just brought up in the chat. I love my wife. Think about it. Think about Skin. Think about Teddy and what Teddy keeps bringing up in Alan's presence. Pay attention to it. And then couple that with the idea that Mason brought up of remaking yourself and preservation.
Definitely. By the way, guys, someone's pointing out in the chat that HOOH is in the chat right now.
Wait, really?
The system is here.
You're kidding.
No, everybody's saying that HOOH. They're
Prove
watching.
it. Prove yourself.
Ooh.
Show yourself.
Ooh. Hooch is
You
here.
can only say shit 3 times. Oh, 2 times. I used it once when I was explaining what I could do.
Good. Do we want to actually? Do you mind if I pose a question to the group?
Go ahead.
All right. So obviously, I come from the podcast end of things. So I have my particular. I was thinking in podcast news. Do any of you guys listen to Welcome to Night Vale at all?
Yep.
Yep.
A little bit. Not as religiously as a lot of people, but I love it.
That's cool. I'm glad you guys know. You guys know what's going on. Kind of, at least. It's good. It is good. It is a good show, and it's getting very interesting lately. And I'm a big fan of that weird kind of surrealist, kind of humorous, off-kilter horror, I guess. Subtle horror. I don't know. It's not even really that horrifying. It's just kind of got that basis in it.
I would
It's
say.
weird.
Uncomfortably funny,
weirdness.
or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like it's when abnormal becomes the norm, at least for this town, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wanted to mention that really quickly because I know there's a new episode out. I haven't actually listened to it yet, but it exists, so I will probably listen to it very soon. But we just had a big thing. Once again, it goes in phases, I feel like, with Night Vale. You like have random events that happen for a while that do get called back to later, so they're not necessarily random. But once again, we're getting another sort of rising action, it feels like, plot arc, what with the strangers and everything. So that's been interesting, and it feels like it's starting to come to a head again, and I'm always excited about that. So that's always cool.
Yeah, I still need to dig into it. I know that there's so much I need to listen to first, but I'll tell you this much. I started digging into the novel a bit. I started reading a bit in there, and I am understanding Night Vale. But the thing about it is that, like, I'm glad what you said about what's happening with it now, because what I'm taking away so far from it is it's quirky. not so much meaty, not so much something that I can, because I've been recommended this 1,000 times and asked what my thoughts are on it. And the thing is that, like, if I don't have something that is meaty enough for me to talk about or really dig into for secret meanings and understanding, it's like I could give my opinions on it, but there's not much more than I can give that's valuable to the community.
Right.
So
That's
hearing that story is developing now in that sense, that's very good for me.
right. Now the thing is, I know that you've mentioned to me before that people have asked you to do that, and I've always kind of scratched my head and go, why? Because even despite developing stories, it's pretty on the surface as long as you kind of know Night Vale's logic. And that's the thing, is that the logic of Night Vale is never going to be very well explained, and you just kind of have to accept it. The idea is that it's the absurd is the norm. And you've read a bit of the novel now, or delved into it a little bit, so you kind of have an understanding of that. But the thing is, Night Vale operates on its own logic, and it's just like there's not much more depth to it beyond that. There's not a lot of hidden meanings and details in places, but what I like is it's well crafted in terms of the stories that they do callbacks to. So there is a greater overarching focus to the whole thing, but it's couched in all this surrealist humor and bizarre side treks. Meanwhile, you've got characters pop up again and again or are referenced. You get build on of certain stories, and again, it's all framed through the community radio station. So I don't know. I just really like it from a narrative standpoint. I wouldn't necessarily say it's as deep as some people think. I don't know if there needs to be a Night Vale explained series or anything along those lines. I think people just want to know what you think of Night Vale.
I think a review could work quite well because there's definitely not enough, I don't think, for a full-on sort of analysis, but there's definitely a lot of story and characters to talk on.
Definitely.
That could be a thing, Nick. I don't know if you're interested in this concept, but there are a lot of podcasts right now. The podcasts are kicking ass as far as like horror media goes. There's one that I really like called Lore that's drumming up.
I heard about that the other day because I read an article that said, and David, I was going to tell you this too because I got really excited knowing what you do. I read this. Lore is being developed for television.
Whoa.
Podcast
that sounds
that
great.
is being developed for television. That's nuts.
Great. That's great. It's a great podcast. If you're a writer, reading and hearing things is 90% of where ideas come from. You don't come up with them on your own. If you want to write horror stuff, listen to Lore. It's as simple as that. Like, listen to stuff like that. If you're listening to stuff like that, then it will make your writing better. Night Vale is kind of the same way, only Night Vale is a little more specific. Lore is more like concept stuff, which it's just amazing. But yeah, I'm very excited for this TV show. That's fantastic.
That is exciting. And actually, Lore is on my to-do list of things to listen to. I am definitely going to check that. I am definitely going to make sure that I delve into that before any TV stuff hits in that regard. I do love me a good narrative podcast. I grew up listening to a lot of, it's no surprise considering what I do, but a lot of audio dramas and radio plays. So narrative podcasts are my kind of thing. It's a great revival of that idea. And I'm excited whenever I hear about stuff like this.
Yeah. Oh, and that reminds me, the television thing. I know you two guys probably know about this, but Jack, have you heard about Creatures?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Well, the channel TNT is bringing back Tales from the Crypt as part of 3 shows in a horror block that they're going to be doing. They're doing a full push for television horror. Those 2 other shows, one of them is called Time of Death, which is kind of like American Horror Story mixed with 24. It's basically each season is going to be its own story, and it's going to be hour by hour through one night or one event. So it's going to be in like live time for each episode. The other show, I hope you are sitting down for this one. The other show called Creatures that's in development, that's been greenlit, has a premise where 2 12-year-old girls end up trying to cut out the heart of one of their friends to appease an internet boogeyman called Mr. Gorgie. And they get locked away in an asylum until their 20s when they are released and continue talking to each other because Mr. Gorgie is back and appears to be real. Immediate impressions.
I understand why they're making a documentary, but where are the Slenderman? There's a lot of stuff to talk about that and how, the internet did spawn some kind of actual, killing, attempt of killing through fiction, which is really interesting. But I'm not sure how I feel about this as actual fictional storyline where he is actually real. I'm not sure what kind of message that really gives off.
Yeah, it just, as soon as I read that, I'm like, it's like somebody in the chat just said, Ben Ellis, wow, this is super original and tasteful. It's so respectful. Such a respectful and original idea. Oh, man.
It's exploitation in like its purest sense.
Yeah.
I think they need to double down on it. Like, I think they're already making the show. So now just disrespect the hell out of it. Like, you've already making the most disrespectful thing ever. So, just make this the worst thing ever. Just just horrible.
If you're gonna go in, go full hog.
Opening scene. You show me two 12-year-old girls above another 12-year-old girl with a knife just slashing at her. Go for it.
Make
Go
them
for
evil. Make them like just like condescendingly evil. Make the movie or make the show about how horrible 12-year-old emo kids are. Like just double down. Make it like the worst thing ever.
Did anyone see the list that the two girls brought with them when they actually went out to kill their friend?
There's a list.
They wrote like a little shopping list of what they needed, and it's all inspired by sort of DeviantArt fan fiction. They say there's a shopping list, and it says we need to buy waffles for Toby, cheesecake for Marcy.
Oh shit!
hoodie.
No.
This is real.
Oh,
this is
Oh my god! Oh my god! So I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up, Jack.
Glad you brought that up too. Oh my god!
Because I have seen like featured on DeviantArt from time to time. Someone wrote rituals, how to summon, and there's a long list of different creepypasta characters and how to summon them. And I see so many comments going, "Oh, I'm going to try this." I'm like, "No, you idiots! This is not real."
And they're all identical as well. They just have to go to an graveyard and say their name 5 times with a knife, and they'll come up and kill whoever you want them to. Or
yeah, it's the dumbest thing.
The thing you mentioned on DeviantArt was actually featured, I think, on MTV after the big Charlie craze. They talked about how here are like 7 other creepypasta monsters you can summon. And it's written by a 12-year-old.
Oh, of course it's written by a 12-year-old. There's no logic in it.
Something written by a 12-year-old? Oh my god.
Oh my goodness. I think
the comments on the MTV article are like, how can people do these demonic rituals? They might summon something real. Like they're taking it seriously as well.
Oh goodness. Look, it's all well and good if you can have that disconnect between fantasy and reality, but come on, guys. Come on.
Someone in the chat says, how to summon Alan Resnick. I
want to know how to summon. Slimeby says, you can summon me by monetizing my stories.
Oh, yep.
It's very true. He'll sue you.
Got me out. I summoned Nyx. No, you don't.
Oh man, I'm still reminded. One time, I was watching Craig Ferguson talk to Clive Barker about just on his show, and he was talking. They were talking about Candyman, and he mentions like, I can't do Craig Ferguson's accent, but he's talking about how he's tried to do the Candyman ritual in front of the mirror just to see if it would work, but he always gets to 4 and then he stops, and he's like, have you overdone it? And Clive Barker's just like, oh yes, well, I did it myself. I said Candyman in the mirror 5 times, and my husband of 5 years materialized behind me. And Craig's like, and that's how you met him? And he's like, yes. So good. But oh my god,
I'm looking at the list that Jack just brought up for the link. I'll go ahead and throw the link in the video description. But
yeah, I have seen this list before. Or not this specific. Pepper spray for Jeff. Yeah, you'd want to pepper spray Jeff.
Map of the forest. Did you draw the map yourself or did you print it out, girls? A camera.
The will to live is on the list. Why is the will to live a listed item? Is it really something you need to... What the...
I think the dumbest thing... I mean, it's hard to pick a dumbest thing when it comes to this, but if you're looking at the list itself, if we put the list in a bubble for dumbest item, cheesecake for Masky and Hoodie, that was 110% just fan stuff. Like, just a fan joke. And it's not even a nice fan joke.
Yeah, it was making fun of him. So.
It was making fun of Tim because he gained weight. Like, Masky's been on the cheesecake lately. That's not nice, guys, and it's not even canon.
I love how there's stuff crossed out on the list. Like, that was too bad for the list. Yeah, I can't imagine what it was.
They decided not to summon. Mr. Widemouth for some reason. It's like what I've imagined. I can't tell what it is. I love the idea of there's a spray bottle for Ben, and I just think to myself, what if Ben shows up? Do you like take it like you would go to a cat and just spray it in the face? Like, no, bad Ben. Bad. Shh. Get out of here. Bad Ben.
I don't understand that either. Wouldn't the ritual be for summoning Ben be like you have to bring a Super Nintendo into the middle of the woods and just pour blood on it and smash it with a hammer?
I remember reading that part of the original like DeviantArt list, and it said like you have to get a copy of Majora's Mask and do all this stuff with it, and then you smash it, and then Ben will appear.
Just to ask you why you're disrespecting his game.
I'm just sad that someone might actually go out and smash a copy of a Majora's Mask cartridge. That's sacrilege. Come on, those games are good. Like finding an original card of Majora's Mask is harder than you'd expect.
Oh yeah, somebody in the chat says only if your wife is in the club. Yeah, why didn't they bring $20 with them? If they really were that serious about what they were doing, and they took the cheesecake joke to that extent and wrote this list, where was the $20, girls? Could you not borrow it from your mother? Maybe each of you could have brought a 10.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
Dear God.
Oh, that shook things up. Thank you for mentioning that, Jack.
It's also the fact that they believed he lived in a mansion.
Wait,
just
Slenderman?
Yeah, there's this big theory that these kids have about Slenderman living in a mansion in that specific forest.
Weird.
And that's where all the other characters live with him in this mansion.
Oh my gosh.
Well, don't you know that's what their fan fiction says?
Want to see my
Hardest
head
girl
come off?
to know if you're gonna feature her in the live stream. That's only 100 times.
Oh, we have Faustus has a ritual to summon Alan Resnick, and it's you must paint blue chairs while high on Claradrill. Then at midnight, the Resnick will appear sitting on his blue chair eating clay pizza. He will now grant you immortality.
I love the way Alan tutorial starts in like such an innocent way. It's just like how to break a can. First, you gotta stab it, and of course he fucks that up immediately. Like the entire first episode is just him fucking it up.
Oh, it's so good.
And then the blue chair, he just gives up. It's just whatever.
Yeah. Well, when we were doing when we had that revelation about 1999 while we were recording it, I changed the thumbnail that I was originally planning from a creepy picture of Mr. Bear to a creepy picture of Alan Resnick, and
Every picture.
gave the
of
image
Alan
credit as unedited footage of a bear.
There you go.
Whereas for when me and Nick and Dead Palette had our discussion about the potential plagiarism, I just used the blue chair for an image and had it credited as bear in the big blue chair. Hey, do we want to potentially see if the chat has anything they want to ask us?
Yeah, but before we do the final thing with the story that you brought along, let's go ahead and ask the chat. What's up, chat? What you got for us? Anything that you'd like to bring up?
Hello, chat.
I'm gonna go ahead and point out a couple people tweeted at me with questions. So
Yeah, I have a couple too.
Cool. So you want to go first?
No, you go first.
Okay. So someone who goes by Boo, Spooky Boo, at Spooky Boo, writes, have you seen the Shin Gojira trailer? It's nice, dark, and creepy. You should check it out. It is too spooky for me. I have seen that, and actually there is something very unsettling about that particular this new incarnation of Godzilla. He just looks like his arms look really like weird and vestigial, and like he's got that crazy looking face. It's like, ugh.
You just reminded me of one of my favorite things from Ask Jeff and Jack. Oh, Jack, I got to thank you for doing this like constantly. Too spooky for you.
Yeah.
Oh, my favorite running gag.
Question for Nyx. Mason, why does no one visit the subreddit? I don't know.
There's a subreddit?
It's r/Nyx Fears. Nobody visits it. I think we have
Chat, go visit it.
I think we have like 70 something. Go follow the subreddit.
Chat, do our bidding.
I don't know.
Show some love, guys. Here's something. Well, actually, let's ask Jack. Jack, do you got any questions first coming in from your guys?
Not that I can see. I haven't really got anything on Twitter or
I do
Facebook.
apologize for the spider on your microphone, though. I'm sorry you have to deal with
Yeah,
that.
that's why I went quiet for so long.
I'm sorry.
It's caught in a glass now, though. thankfully.
Oh, there you
Back in the
go.
class. All right, good.
Oof. Well, I
Very
will
content.
say, see the thing with the, I mean, some people might notice that, you know, Jack walks softly and talks softly, but carries a big stick. So the important thing that is, when he talks, it means something, whereas we just blabber on about everything.
Yep. Here's something. And it's interesting that this is brought up because this is something I've been fighting with myself recently about thinking of. So, Win 5 Get 1 Free asks, are you going to cover Meatsleep? If so, do you have a times table you would be comfortable talking about? Times table. I'm sorry. It was one word. Thanks. So, okay, guys. Here's the thing about Meatsleep, and I was not anticipating this. When the game ended, when that series ended, we all knew why it happened because we were told by the creators of the game that there was some harassment, there was, as they said, ugly misogyny, and there was just a whole lot of a mess going along, causing the game to crash. I did begin looking into it, like really looking into it, and it's much worse than you guys realize. It got to the point where I discovered part of where Meatsleep comes from. The truth about the series is that it has had not one, not two, but like 3 incarnations, possibly
Ooh.
4. One of those incarnations is instrumental evidence to the investigation, something that I would absolutely positively not overlook, something that I would need to bring up in order to explain where this thing came from and how it developed. Problem with that is, the only reason that I know this information is because the source it comes from is one of the very same antagonistic, kind of vile personalities that tried to bring down the game from the beginning and pull the names of the creators, even though they did nothing to this person. And they'd been doing it all along. So in order for me to even present that information and give you the source where I got this from, it would bring attention to this very vile, attention-seeking person who was vindictive about the game and anybody who was playing it or making it from the beginning. And he's a lot like, say, the devil. Speak of him, even in a roundabout way, and he's going to appear. I do not want to bring such a poisonous personality anywhere near my community, and I do not want to give this person any more attention than they already tried to drum up by basically hijacking and attacking this game and its creators. That's the first issue. The second issue is that when it comes to other things that brought the game down in terms of ugly misogyny and harassment, the reason that happened, I'm very sorry to say, was the creator's own fault as part of Meatsleep.
Oof.
Some of the very final videos for that series were videos pulled from other channels created by girls online who had nothing at all to do with the game. And the proof for trying to unmask the creators of Meatsleep at that point was so high that people antagonized both of these girls, one of whom had prior internet experience and could take it better. The other, if you saw the video of this person, you would know instinctively within a minute of watching it that this is the kind of person who should never, ever have an encounter with the kind of crowd that was following Meatsleep, who wanted to unmask people. Because this is the kind of person who would not be able to take any internet strangers who are anything other than neutral or positive. Someone who had nothing at all to do with the game and had no experience even being on camera, talking into a microphone, or presenting themselves online to strangers. It was a very, very bad situation. When I found out what exactly this entailed and what 2 girls were targeted, I realized, oh my God, it's not just the people who came after these girls who were following the game. It was the creator's fault for putting it on blast and including these people who had no idea what was going on in their game and directing it to them. So it was bad. It was very bad. In essence, the reason I cannot cover Meatsleep, for the foreseeable future anyway, is that by doing so, even if I disguise who the people were that Meatsleep uploaded, these 2 girls who got antagonized, there is still the giant issue of me having this information about a prior incarnation of Meatsleep as part of its timeline that came from a source who is a very unlikable person who will definitely go out of his way to source himself on all formats of social media if I didn't give him the source. And I'm not going to do that because he doesn't deserve any attention at all for what he's done. If you guys even knew about the campaign that he began trying to actively antagonize the creators of Meatsleep and dox them, you would never want to see this person get any attention. So as much as I'd like to talk about Meatsleep, and as much as I know, I cannot, in order to protect my community and other people, touch it. Not for the foreseeable future.
Well, you know how they say no press is bad press, or no attention is bad attention. I think that's the right decision to make by keeping that obscure and not drawing attention to anything, and by intentionally keeping that in the dark. I think that's the best option. So good on you, Nick.
Thanks. It's tough because Meatsleep was such a landmark ARG, but like, oh my god! And you know what? I didn't even mention the other thing is that as funny as it was sometimes seeing, Meatsleep's response to certain viewers who were basically trying to suck the life out of their game, some of the responses they gave were really mean. And I'm talking really unprofessionally mean. Like using rap lyrics, specific moments of rap lyrics to say some really dirty things to these channels that were trying to follow along with the Meatsleep mystery. So altogether, from people who were following it to people who were creating it, there were some decisions made that actively hurt players and community, and people who weren't even involved, people who had no idea about this, and suddenly they're being antagonized and accused of being involved with a real serial killer without having any idea what they're talking about. It's a mess. It's something to learn from, something to talk about in a certain contained way when we talk about how to make and develop and keep ARGs running. But altogether as a special, I couldn't tell the Meatsleep story, because telling the story means I'm going to give you all the information that I have, that I've gathered about this one thing as deeply as I can, telling the truth. But if I did that, there's so much bad that would come out of it.
Well, in a very roundabout way, I think that does answer that question. In a very succinct, well, I say roundabout, but then I also say succinct. Derp. I mean to say that I think that's the best answer I think you can give for that one. Gosh, and I'm looking at the chat's reaction. I'm like, well, I'm glad that you guys are understanding like how important that is and how significant that is that this happened. So stay classy, guys. All right. Good.
Yeah, thank you guys for understanding, because it's something I've debated about debated with myself about for a while, especially digging up the information. And I've thought of every instance in which I could potentially get the source that I need in order to present this very crucial step of its history without, giving any credit or attention to the poisonous personality. But even then, he's going to come at me and say, I wonder where you got that lead from. Where'd you get the lead from, Nick, to go ahead and interview this person and get the information? Because I only know one source it came from, and it's mine. So altogether, it can't be done. I would be feeding a very greedy beast.
And the best way to kill it is to starve it.
Yep.
So there you go.
Mason, Jack, did you guys follow Meatsleep at all, or did you know anything about it?
I did initially, but I haven't been too lately with what's going on.
Yeah, the game ended up crashing entirely, and the creators uploaded this video called No More, in which they explained why the game was coming down, and that it was this group of people across several countries who were working together online. And it was a fascinating reveal. It's kind of sad when you read about why they were ending it. Even more horrifying to find out what led to their ending it was a mixture of not only other people, but their own poor decisions that led to people being attacked.
Again, well said. I got a question that this is for everyone in the chat that was tweeted to me. What would you, and this is a weird one. This is from Bonnie Rach. What would you guys do if like absolutely nothing creepy were ever to exist? And I'm like, what? Because fear is such a primal thing. You're always going to find something creepy. But in a hypothetical scenario, I'd probably write pirate stories. There you go. Swashbuckling adventures.
Do you mean like torrenting?
Well, I could write swashbuckling adventures of internet pirates. There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yar, watch me sit here and download movies from the Pirate Bay. Yar.
Oh, you could write a story about that, sure.
Also, Slime Beast. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's finish that question first. What would you guys do?
If there was nothing creepy that we were doing?
Yeah, what would you do if you weren't doing creepy stuff, I guess?
Hmm.
Well, I'm not doing creepy stuff.
There you
If I
go.
wasn't doing this, I would probably be making a YouTube series, like a narrative series.
Nice.
I actually really want to, but it's kind of hard to launch when you're already kind of pegged down doing something else. But we'll see. I'm waiting for the idea to come in like its full form. I mean, I've made some narrative videos. I made a Samurai Buyer unboxing video.
That was great.
That is not what you think it is. It's
Isn't the guy who runs it? Isn't he sending you another one? Or
yeah, as far as I know. But anyway, yeah, that was a good time. And so I figure, I can do that, and I have like better gear since I made that. I should probably make more, but I don't really know. And I think what I would want to do is probably do some sort of series potential kind of idea involving not necessarily like a recurring character, but some sort of story or something like that. I'm a big fan of like the Stella comedy series, which was in like 2008 or something like that. Or well, it hit YouTube in 2008. I think they made it in the 90s, but it's fantastic. It's really stupid and off the wall, but yeah, I need to I need to sit down and develop something, for the love of God.
It'll be great when you do. It's always the act of finding the time and just having the right idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Jack, what would you be doing if you weren't doing the Baptism on Fire channel?
I mean, I guess if the horror genre somehow stopped existing, I guess move on to science fiction, although that's very linked to the horror genre, at least in the parts I like it. So I guess focusing on comedy maybe could work, or instead of horror comedy, or some other form of mixing elements of different genres together.
Oh yeah, that would be an easy transition for you, for just going for pure comedy in other areas. And
Oh yeah, definitely.
that's definitely something that seems to be the thing, is that if you end up losing, horror, you're just gonna go to the next closest thing, which is some sort of science fiction. But if I weren't doing this, I would be still working on one of the 100,000 other things that I had in the tank before Nightmind actually showed signs of, being something people actually enjoy and had a future.
Huh.
Everything that I do ends up like in the freezer. It's never really dead. It's either going to be revived at some point in a new form, or it's going to be continued when I have the time. And there's 100,000 of them. But there are things that I would do. Not necessarily horror, of course. Not necessarily creepy. Sometimes more lighter stuff, like way lighter, stuff that you guys probably can't even imagine me doing. But they're still alive. They're just on a shelf.
Heartwarming orphans.
Heartwarming orphans.
Slimey sent me one saying, "Has Nick seen Toys in Japan yet? It sheds light on the clickbait nature of Hey Kids, etc."
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with it either, but it's a little bit of insight from the beast of slimy substance. So you gotta wonder.
Let's see. Questions coming in from the chat.
I got one that someone was asking, like, what advice I would give to creators, like new creators or people that want to create. And my advice is, don't peg yourself down on one thing too early. Like, just know that you can do anything on this site. Literally anything.
Try everything.
Anything. Like, you can literally do anything, and don't sell yourself short by saying, "Oh, I can do this," or the thing is, whatever you have a calling for, or you feel like you have a drive to do that, but never feel like you do things because you have to. Do things because that excites you. Do the idea that excites you the most.
Oh, yeah.
Do the idea that scares you. The idea that you're nervous about. Do that one, because that one's going to end up being the best idea that you have. That's going to end up being the best video that you ever make, is the one that you don't think you can do.
That's fantastic advice. I always say make the kind of stuff that you enjoy too. Like, don't just make something because it's going to be lucrative. Make the kind of stuff, or you think it's going to be lucrative. Make the kind of things you want to see more of. Make the kind of things you want to make, because you already enjoy that kind of thing. I want to real quick mention that for any like aspiring creators out there, again, another shameless plug, and I apologize for this. There's a podcast that just started out. I have some connection with, called The Artist Tree, and they do, and Canary T Robot, the host, does informational interviews with people who are in creative fields, and all kinds of different creative fields, and asks them sort of how they got there and what they might advise for creatives who are trying to get to a place where they can support themselves creatively, or at least get a foothold, get a foot in the door, so to speak. And I highly recommend it. It's really small. It's just starting out, but I highly recommend it to anybody who is an aspiring or is already a creative and wants to hear what other people are doing to kind of set forward. You might actually get some good inspiration.
I concur. I'm actually going to be part of that soon. Just need to move some time around in my schedule. But I agree. Go over to see The Artistry. A lot of good stuff is happening over there with a good mission statement.
And that's The Artistry?
That's The Artistry, yeah.
Artist Tree.
The Artist Tree. You can find it on YouTube. You can also find it on benviewnetwork.com/the-artist-tree. Same network that hosts Midnight Marinara. So.
Oh, okay.
Here's an interesting one. Radical Edward 37 says, would Nick or you guys ever consider doing anything with the creepypasta narrators like Mr. Creepypasta, Creepypasta Jr., King Spook, etc.?
Potentially.
I mean, the greatest thing about YouTube is the fact that there are tons of people all doing different things, and they're all very good at specific things. So when you need somebody, it's nice to have somebody, but you never know when you're going to need somebody. So the answer is probably yes, but it's, the time might not be here yet. It's just one day you might make something and go, you know what I really need is this guy. and then that's how that happens. It just kind of happens that way.
Yeah. It's tricky because like also people like Mr. Creepypasta, people like that are really big, and everybody kind of wants a piece of Mr. Creepypasta. It seems like Mr. Creepypasta to some degree is like the really big, pretty much he's for a lot of people he's become like really synonymous with the idea of creepypasta. So again, if that was if he was somebody some of us would want to work with, I feel like it'd be a tricky thing to do. Am I saying it couldn't happen? No, I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm just saying it'd be interesting.
I mean, what's nice about the sort of big creepypasta narration circle is there's been the past year, about I think around summer last year, there was a huge rise in the sort of morbid reality and sort of true urban legend stories on the site. There's stuff like Mr. Nightmare and Lazy Masquerade, which have really grown really quickly over a few months. So it's great to see that the genre of narration in horror has actually evolved quite a lot.
It's true. You see a lot of people doing that. I want to encourage people who want to maybe get into that scene to not do it because they see other people doing it successfully, because that market is very saturated right now. If you're going to do creepy narration on YouTube, find a way to do it in your own way, in your own voice, and make it interesting. A lot of people in the chat are yelling Rainbot, and I see Rainbot. Hi, Rainbot.
Yep.
Here the whole
Hello to Josie. Hello to Rainbot. Seen you both in here for a while. Appreciate it.
Nice to see you both here.
Your besties.
Yay.
But I'm too busy being in this chat.
Aww. Let's all be friends sometime.
Oh.
Just saying, if you're
are saying that the new HOOH, also known as Who video just dropped, so that is very exciting. We'll be
Ooh.
checking that one out later. Thoughts on Don't
I
Hug Me, I'm
love-
Scared? Too bad, you get a hug.
Hey.
But Dave, what's you said that you brought a story for us, right?
did. So I thought it might be fun. Just gonna say I was sorry to type it in the comments, but yeah, Rainbot, Josie, you both are cool. Stay classy, and not even sarcastically. Stay classy. But yeah, I brought a story for us to do a la Undercooked Analysis, which is again the show where we sort of read a creepypasta story, usually blind. And I picked one that I remember really early on, and I'm not sure how if the quality is fantastic or not. But I figured we would do a live Undercooked Analysis of this chat, see what people think.
Yeah, feels like fun to me. We'll go ahead and do this, and I guess we'll wrap up for the evening after that, after our nice discussion with this. So let's
Yeah.
go ahead and have some fun with this story.
Definitely. And I apologize for people who maybe had a lot of questions. There's a lot of you guys here. We'll probably do this. This will definitely happen again in the future, I'm sure.
Oh,
So,
absolutely, yeah.
And if you feel free to keep shooting us questions on the side. Cool guys and gals send us stuff. Anyway, I've linked a story. We are reading a story called Fog. Who wants to start?
Nathan and Jack, you both got it up?
Yep.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, excellent. So let's see here. Okay, we'll take this paragraph by paragraph. If it's anything like the second paragraph where it's just 2 lines, you can take that and the next one. So anything that looks like way too short to just read in a clip, you can go ahead and grab the next one as well, and we'll just flow with the motion.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I guess I shall kick us off here.
Go for it. Do we have an order established though? Like
Right. Let's go. Me, you, David. Let's take Jack third, and Mason, you can go fourth.
All right.
Alrighty. If you are reading this, then I am dead, and you are standing aboard a derelict Cyclone-class patrol ship, the USS Mistral, with her engines dead and her electrical systems non-functional. I was, the XO of this vessel, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Simmons.
Thoughts on this first paragraph?
I did not know if it was Mistral or Mistry. I didn't know if it was an I or an L while I was reading that.
It is Mistral, I'm pretty sure.
Mistral, yeah, with her engines, electric system. Okay, so that's a pretty classic creepypasta opening line. If
I'd
you
say
are reading
so.
this, I am dead.
But I like that it's going to be a seafaring story.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I like those kind of stories.
Yep.
All right. Please read this carefully. If you're an officer or enlisted man in the United States Navy, this is an order. Scuttle this vessel immediately. Do not finish this letter. Get off the Mistral at once and send her down. Consider this a quarantine scenario. All hands are likely dead. God help you if they are not.
We are 8 days out of Kurkul, tracking an intermittent and scrambled distress call from what appeared to be an Icelandic fishing vessel, the Magnus Dottir, deep in the no-fishing zone of the North Sea. We found the vessel, or rather, we found a mile-wide streak of oil and fragments, the largest of them still burning. The night before, the enlisted man on watch had reported seeing a flash of light on the horizon.
The Magnus Dottir's crew was nowhere to be found, except for one lone fisherman, unburned and floating at the far end of the debris field. He had been shot in the forehead with a small revolver. When we fished his pale blue corpse from the frigid water, he was still clutching a fishing knife in one clamped hand. What we are able to piece together from the fragmented and confounding evidence was that, for reasons unknown, the crew had been in conflict, resulting in the murder of at least one sailor, and the eventual sabotage and destruction of the ship.
We have a mystery on our hands.
Yeah, actually, this is shaping up kind of nicely.
Yeah, I like it.
Visibility was only a few hundred feet as we spent the next day drifting silently among the debris in hopes of finding a survivor. The crew was already visibly shaken by the discovery. The grim dread of the fog and lone smoldering pieces of the Magnus Air that collided with our hull unsettled even the most seasoned of us. We had expected an easy cruise, and the simple retrieval of a dozen thankful Icelandic fishermen. What we got at first was a silent and oil-slick-coated sea, a single corpse, and more than a few nagging questions.
The Mistral had just been serviced after an extended tour with the Atlantic Fleet in Baren before her transfer to the North Sea. She was in good running order, so I can only assure that the initial mechanical failure was an act of sabotage or of some external force. It happened the first night, when our final sweep had been completed, and we returned to the site of the Magnusdottir's first transmission.
There was nothing initially remarkable about the spot. A cold and lonely set of coordinates and nothing else. I was in my cabin, just sitting down when the call sounded from the captain, offering little information. Just a stern order to meet him on deck.
Dressing quickly, I emerged from my cabin into a cloud of palpable unease and fear. The enlisted men and the junior officers were coursing through the ship towards the deck, like panicked rats. No one made eye contact or spoke. There was none of the usual gallows humor or camaraderie that bubbles up in situations of limited information, just a grim inertia that pulled us into the Arctic night.
On deck, the night was unnaturally clear and cold, and the bright of the stars burned in the frosty air. Around us, in every direction, just a few hundred yards away, the fog and clouds whirled, as if held at bay by our presence. The captain was at the railing, leaning over along with the men on watch. I approached him, suddenly desperate and panicked to know what was happening, when I saw it, the light flooding up from beneath us.
The sea was flat, like the surface of a mirror. The water was black, reflecting the pale pinpricks of the stars. But beneath the surface, something glowed with a cold light. Pulsating shapes of violet, green, and deep cobalt blue shone from beneath. They flowed and merged and shimmered silently deep below the glassy sea.
We stared, 24 men and women, struck dumb and horrified by the sight. There was a sense of scale that emerged from the fluid movement of lights. They seemed to be many fathoms beneath us, which would make them terribly large and impossibly vast. There were no solid shapes, and no disturbance of the water, just a deep field of liquid flowing light.
We watched for what seemed like hours, entranced by the mesmerizing ballet of cold light, a mirror reflection of the northern lights. When it ended, abruptly, there were 3 almost simultaneous events. First, the lights seemed to contract, each mote freezing in place and collapsing like the iris of an eye in a bright sunlight. Secondly, there was a tremor in the air that first raised the hair on the back of my neck. As the ghostly lights winked out of existence, it rose in intensity, until I thought my eyeballs might shake their way out of my head. Through the fog of sudden pain, I heard a noise rising above the Arctic wind, a humming vibration from the Mistral herself that matched the electric shuddering in my skull.
It was as if every light bulb aboard the Mistral was suddenly flushed with power, flaring bright and buzzing noisily in their housings. And when the wine had reached a fever pitch, they began to pop and shatter among a shatter of sparks. From start to finish, it lasted less than 2 seconds, and we were left silent, floating silently in the dark waters, beneath the starry sky, on a dead and crippled boat.
The damage was invisible without any obvious cause, and total. Nothing aboard the Mistral worked. Each carefully crafted system of multiple redundancies had crumbled. Every light was shattered, and even the replacement bulbs and the small flashlights we all carried held fused and useless filaments. Satellite phones, shortwave radios, all means of communication were useless bricks of plastic and wire. Every battery was dead. Every stereo system was silent. We were adrift, without sail or engine, isolated from the world by 100 miles of black and silent sea.
The crew moved through the ship that first night like moles, fumbling through dark corridors of only a few pale green chemical lights to check each system. They relayed each disheartening message like a fire brigade through the darkness to where the captain and I stood on the deck, trying to make sense of all the senselessness. At last, when nothing else could be done, I fumbled my way back through the cabin and tried to sleep, the darkness feeling like an oppressive, many-fingered hand, slowly gripping my chest.
The next morning, I again took stock of our situation, hoping for some fragment of hope we had passed by in the night. The damage was total. We would have to find a way to send a distress call, and hope that we had not drifted too far from our last known coordinates. The men may not have known the full details, but it was clear from their haunted visages that they knew how dire the situation was.
The first death was that afternoon. The sounds of screaming brought me above deck and into a thick, heavy fog. High in the gloom, I could see bright burning specks of light descending slowly. My stomach turned. It was 2 signal flares drifting uselessly through the haze. Some damn fool had fired the signal flares. I burned with an unfamiliar and foreign rage and rushed through the fog to the foredeck with hatred in my blood and my fists clamped tight.
The scene that emerged from the fog broke me from my stupor. The enlisted man, a flare gun still in his hand, lay broken in a pool of blood. The captain stood over him, clutching the railing, driving the heel of his boot repeatedly into the broken mess of the boy's skull. I realized then that the screaming I heard, the high keening wail, was coming from the captain, his face in a rictus of animal rage. Around him was a small crowd, standing motionless and silent, watching like sentinels.
The captain turned to see me and dropped into a crouch, his fingers wrapping around the flare gun, and he raised it level with my eyes. We stared for a long moment at each other, our eyes locked as he panted heavily, his face lightly spattered with blood. The only sound was the wet gurgling exhale of the enlisted man's death rattle, a bubble of blood forming on his ruined face.
I'd served with this man for nearly a decade. This was not the man I knew. This was a hollow simulacrum, filled with violence and terror. I spoke to him then. In a soothing voice, I asked him to hand me the flare gun. He said nothing at first, and then spoke, his voice a tiny trembling sound that he swallowed up by the thick gloom around us. He murdered us, Ryan. The fog. The flares will never.
He shook his head and clenched his eyes tight as if he were trying to shake himself from a dream. Then he shuddered once, violently, his back arching like a seizure. "The little fuck has killed us," he choked out. The flare gun wavered in the air and I took a step closer, reaching out for him. He opened his eyes and I froze again as we stared silently at one another. "You're going to die here," he giggled quietly. "I always wanted to watch you die, you fucking coward."
He tilted his head back and laughed, one hyena-like bark to the gray sky, and then put the flare gun in his mouth and fired, the last flare igniting and temporarily bathing his head in a halo of magnesium orange and smoke. He tumbled back over the railing. If there was a splash when he hit the water, it was swallowed by the fog.
I stood for what seemed like a very long time. It slowly dawned on me that I was alone, the silent audience having melted away below decks, no doubt taking the grim tale with them. I feared for a morale, an absurd concern, I realized now, but could not move from the spot, as if sheer force of will would cause the sea to regurgitate this man, my friend.
The first gunshot broke me from my reverie. In the emergency lockers, I found that a handful of flare guns remained, and I stuffed one into each pocket and entered the dim passageway to the below deck. Over the hollow retort of gunshots, other muffled sounds began to emerge, the choking sobs, the screams of pain and anger, all bringing the faint impression of the copper smell of blood.
The dark was oppressive and thick as my heart rose in my chest. The pale, fading light of the chemical glow sticks that hung at regular intervals illuminated the bare corridor, and I moved slowly toward my cabin. It had been sacked, and my service pistol was missing. The next two cabins held the corpses of the junior officers, their broken forms still in their bunks, skulls open like blossoming flowers under the point-blank shots.
I felt a distinct and irrational desire to run on deck and leap overboard, to swim away from the boat into the unknown sea. I gripped a flare gun and held it ahead of me, less like a weapon and more like a talisman, and began to pace slowly down the corridor to the enlisted bunks.
The door was wide open, and the smell of blood and fear and shit was nauseating. As my eyes slowly adjusted to the dim, I saw a field of bodies, torn, shredded, and scattered by bullets and makeshift clubs. A few of the men still moved, twitching slightly. I watched in frozen terror as one man, his face a mask of blood and rage, turned up his head to regard me, and with a weak cry of rage, began to drag himself with his arms, trailing a broken and shattered leg towards me.
From the shadows, another form pounced on him, a boot digging into the wounded man's back with a wet, cracking sound. I recognized the attacker's face in the green chemical dim, a quiet and bookish young man, like the captain. This was not the man I knew. This was a beast that wore his skin.
He reached down and grabbed the wounded man's jaw, thumb slipping into his mouth. The wounded man growled, a feral, mindless sound, and tried to bite down, but his attacker gripped tight and pulled. The jaw came off with the sound of tearing tendons and an ululating shriek that had vanished into the air.
I was no longer breathing, holding silently at the entrance, but the attacker snapped his head up to see me, nostrils flaring. The jawbone hit the floor with a meaty sound, and he lunged toward me with a silent animal grace. I fired the flare gun, and it hit him square in the chest. His shirt caught fire, and all air escaped his lungs with a sudden, forceful exhale. But impossibly, he continued on towards me. As I passed through the portal and slammed the door, the fire had climbed into his hair, and he was squealing now, his clawed hand still outstretched towards me.
I felt him impact against the door, and saw that the nightmare visage reefed in fire through the small porthole, lips already burnt away to reveal 2 rows of perfect teeth. He wailed and began to smash his burning form against the door, once, twice, 3 times, and then silence. I raised my eyes to the porthole, and saw only the faint image of the burning shape as it disappeared into the darkness. All consciousness fraught evaporated, and I fled from that charnel house.
I've barricaded all entrances to below deck now, and have doomed myself to slow death at the hands of the enveloping cold. I can still hear the living ones down there, screaming and banging on the doors. They are not the men that I knew. I console myself with this thought as I leave them in the dark to starve and murder each other. If you've read this far, and have not fled these waters, or God forbid, are still aboard the Mistral, I beg you again, leave now while you can. Do not look below deck, there are none of us left to save, and certainly none worth saving.
It's cold now, and the fading day surrendering the wan gray light to the dark. There are no stars this night, nothing but the heavy blanket of night. If I could get below, I would find some way of destroying the Mistral, like the brave men of the Magnus Stutter, but it's too late. The most I can make of my last moments, as all feeling flees from my extremities and reading becomes impossible, is a warning.
Please, send us into the deep. Tell no one you found us and never return. There are things and primal desires older than man, and forces beyond the grasp of our simple minds, and they dwell here, beneath the frozen sea.
Credited to Joseph K.
Well, Joseph K. GG.
God damn. Wow.
Meaty sound.
The memes.
Well, that was fun.
That was actually really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave. Usually you find stuff that's worth laughing at, but I can't bring any criticism against that one.
Yeah, I honestly, I was trying to find something that would be a little more terrible for us to read, and I was like, you know what? Why subject everybody to that right now? I'm sure there will be plenty of time for us to find terrible stories. And I was expecting that to be a little bit more like on the nose, but actually kind of surprised.
Man, that was good.
Josie says 10 out of 10.
Yep. The rest of the chat says meaty sound.
Meaty sound.
No, it was good. It had pretty much everything. It had a professional caliber of writing to it. It had the mystery that was necessary, and it had such good pacing. When it comes to letter stories, it's tough to make it work because of the final note, that a man wrote. But this one nailed it.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I liked it. I think the beginning was a little ham-fisted, but after that, it built up.
The first line was a little boring almost.
Mm.
Yeah,
It seemed a little too generic, but then as soon as the action starting, then it really picks up the pace.
yeah, and what's great about it too is that it stays unknown. There's no explanation for anything that happens. Just weird light under the ocean. People start going fucking insane.
Absolutely. It is scary. Like you said, Jack, that first line, that was worrying. I thought, okay, here we go. We're going to have fun with this one. But no, we had the other kind of fun, the fun where you actually read something decent. It was scary, though. It reminded me a lot of The Thing, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it has that vibe.
The Arctic Sea. Well, I mean, not that the thing was just straight up in the Arctic, but yeah, isolation and being stalked by people you thought were your friends trying to kill you. Everybody going bonkers.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
That was the good stuff. That was good.
Well, I'm glad. Like I said, I saw that first paragraph and it just made me worried.
Yeah. But no, this was a good decision. So I enjoyed it. Everybody enjoyed it?
Yeah.
I give it 1 fog bank out of 3 fog banks, which is way too many fog banks. So 1 fog bank, good enough.
3 flares out of 4.
Excuse me, and I sneeze.
All right. This has been, I believe, a successful maiden voyage of the Moonlight Chat. Kind of meandered a little bit here and there, but I had fun with it. How'd you guys feel?
Oh yeah, good time.
Yep.
I enjoyed it. It was a good time.
Chat, how do you guys feel? You have fun? 5 jaws out of 8.
The artistry says bless you. Thank you, dear.
Give it a meaty sound out of fog. All right.
Meaty sound out of, I give it 7 flare guns out of, wait, where did all the flare guns go?
All right. Well, in that case, guys, I guess we shall close it up. Got any closing statements?
Well, I suppose we should all go around and just say who we are one last time.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm Nyx Fears. You can find me on the internet, on YouTube. Looking to do more collaborations, so if you're out there and you're like an artist, a video creator of some kind, hit me up with your thing, and we'll do a thing or something. I don't know. Hit me up on Twitter.
All right. David, next.
All right. You can find me, as I mentioned before, on the Midnight Marinara podcast, either on BenviewNetwork.com/Midnight Marinara or on YouTube under that same moniker, Midnight Marinara. My Twitter handle is Scary Sauce if you want to hit me up there. And, keep me, you can feel free to recommend things for me to look at. I'm always looking for work to adapt for the radio play audio drama aspect of the channel and of the podcast itself. I, again, want to give a shout out to the artistry if you're interested in hearing more aspects from a creative standpoint. And I also co-write another podcast on the Benview Network called Pick Your Path, which is a choose your own adventure podcast, which if you have the enhanced podcast app on your phone or something along those lines, you can actually choose the chapters you go through in an audiobook, like a choose your own adventure story. And I wrote 2 episodes of that. And we already have another season incoming, so that should be a lot of fun. Anyway, plugs aside, that's what I do.
And Jack, take it away.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be on this. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and all these other social networks under the same username, BaptismOnFire. And yeah.
All right, excellent. And you guys know who I am and what I do, and I will continue to do that and increase quality and content as I can. Thank you guys all for being here. This was awesome. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys did as well. Chat, I hope you had a lot of fun. Viewers who are not in chat as well. And I shall have this edited up real nice and presented later in the week in an uploaded format. And I think this is something that we will definitely do again.
I'd be down for it. Thanks for having me on the show, Nick.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for being here.
And Mason, Jack, it's been a pleasure meeting you both for the first time. I hope we do this again soon.
You too.
Same.
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
All right. Good night and sleep tight.